passed her test. She can drive now.
I can be alone, though. That's what's important.
This is my parents' bed, and I sleep in here because I'm scared of monsters in my room.
Really? Oh! I love you.
I'm the bad guy.
All right, Shot Talk friends. I'm very excited to have another Shot Talk today. And today we're doing our first documentary, which we're going to start having a lot more documentaries on the site because they're such an essential part to the filmmaking canon that we all love and appreciate. And today we're going to talk about the documentary that was released earlier this year even in IMAX theaters, which is awesome, as well as on Apple, and you can still watch it on Apple, and it's Billie Eilish. The World's a Little Blurry, and we're lucky enough to have the director and filmmakers. We have RJ Cutler, and we have DP Jenna Rocher. And RJ, who's a renowned documentarian as well as Jenna is as well. They both have worked forever in this field, and RJ he produced War Room and an amazing series called American High, and even did some narrative work on Nashville and If I Stay, the Belushi documentary recently, and of course this one on Billie Eilish. And Jenna, besides shooting everything and being in the documentary world forever, is also part of she's a cinematography family of world renowned, the Rocher family. Anyway, welcome. I so enjoyed this documentary. It's really interesting because it's about the making of, I guess, the debut studio album for Billie Eilish. And now, looking back, and the documentary obviously explores this, an incredibly successful album, and Billie Eilish sort of became, the incredible star that she is, almost in the making of this film. And I kind of want to know, first and foremost, RJ, just what was the relationship of you, and how did it come to you, or how did you bring it to the O'Connell family? Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the history of this film from its inception.
Yeah, well, I got a phone call. Would I like to meet with someone named Billie Eilish? And I say it that way because while I certainly had heard of Ocean Eyes, which was a song that she, the first song she released when she was 13, that had kind of launched her phenomenon, I really was not, following Billie. Most of her fan base were young teenage women or girls, and I'm also, my music kind of central reference, nexus is you would say classic rock, and so as much as I kind of love to keep up with what's going on in popular music, I was not kind of certainly not hip enough or cutting edge enough to know at that point who Billie was. She had released an EP. She had a following, but it was the kind of following that would fill 750 seat halls, not nothing more than that. There was a lot of optimism on the side of her team, but that, again, I was not aware of that. But I was asked if I would like to go meet with her, and encouraged certainly by folks who advised me that I'd be foolish to pass up the opportunity, and so I did. And I was instantly, I walked into the environment that the film is set in, Billie's home, and instantly engaged in the dynamic in her family, instantly engaged in the creative universe that she and Phineas live in, that Maggie and Patrick have created, instantly intrigued by Billie herself, with whom I had a fairly sudden connection. You know, as I said, and Jenna's heard me say this before, but I revealed to Billie during that first conversation that I identify as a teenage girl. So the gap between us wasn't going to be that far. And I saw in that moment, in that meeting, that initial meeting in the backyard of their house, that it was instantly clear to me that there was an opportunity here to make a film not only about the coming of age of a extraordinary artist, but the coming of age of an extraordinary young woman. And those are two areas that are particularly compelling to me as a filmmaker and storyteller, and things that I've explored in the past. You mentioned American High. I've done a lot of work with subjects coming of age. I'm very, of course, interested in the creative and artistic process. And I knew immediately that this was something that I wanted to do. And fortunately, Billie felt the same, and off we went.
All right. So, and had they started laying down any of that first album, the album that you cover in the documentary?
Everything had kind of started. They, the world was moving very fast. Billie and Phineas had started writing the album. Maggie had been actively using her iPhone to capture home video over time. There had been a couple of days where a crew had filmed them. There was all sorts of resources to work with, which I love, by the way. I don't for all sorts of reasons, this is more of a visual kind of reference conversation. If we were doing a kind of master class in the schedule that involved the scheduling of a documentary, you don't want your subjects too much exposed to a whole process with another group of people and all of those things, because Jenna and I end up paying the price for that. You really want to go in as fresh as possible to a new process when you're starting. But in this case, what existed was footage that crews had shot. Instagram had sponsored something, so there was footage on the road, and there was a crew had shot one day in the writing process, and then of course Billie lives with Maggie, and Maggie's got an iPhone, and Maggie's an artist with an iPhone. So there she was documenting her children's lives, and those were awesome resources for us.
Well, and even though it's a visual site, Shot Deck, I actually love one of the things we like to do with these is actually get into the weeds a little bit about the process of filmmaking.
Right.
Because at the essence of it is filmmaking. And one of the things I'm always interested in is in a documentary, it's got as many varied forms of filmmaking styles and technique as genres, right? Like
That's
documentary runs the gamut from every type, and it's really as diverse of filmmaking, a genre in and of itself as anything going. So obviously this had a little bit of structure, I guess, going off in that. Did you know it, like when you approach a documentary, and I want you to sort of attack that a little bit, but then talk to me about then when you bring Jenna in from that first meeting,
Sure.
and then how does it get started, like for you, Jenna, and like from day one, like what's the first thing you do, and how do you sort of embed yourself inside this family? I actually am interested in a little bit of the weeds process of how you schedule it, how you structure it, all of that.
Yeah, you're asking, and your question is fully articulate. So I'll tell you. One of here's what happens. You're in the backyard and you're like, well, I know what this film is. It's Don't Look Back. It's Gimme Shelter. It's pure verite. I'm not gonna do a single interview with anybody here. I'm gonna observe this journey. They are clearly on a journey. I'll learn a little bit more about what that journey is, and I'll figure out what the structure of my shoot is. Eventually, surprise, I'll figure out that Grammy night is going to be the end of the shoot, and the day they let me in is going to be the start of the shoot. So there's going to be, we're professionals, we're grown-ups, we're in a business. There's going to be a few months of deal haggling, but the day after the deal is haggled, I'm getting out to Jenna Rocher and Trevor Smith, my producer, and a couple of other people. Jay Kim, our audio engineer, and I are going to be on our way to London, because that's where Billie's going to be, and we're going to meet up with them, and we're going to go from there. So it's the beginning is going to be the beginning. The end is going to be, you know, you mentioned Before the War Room. That's my first film. That's the kind of, you know, the what's the stone? The Rosetta Stone for me. That's the film that taught me everything I know about this. Election night's a very useful thing for a filmmaker. You know, it's what Hitchcock would call the MacGuffin. It gives you the structure that you need to tell your story. It doesn't matter what. We've had election nights where people have won. We've had election nights where people have lost. Billie could have won 6 Grammy Awards, 11 Grammys if you count Phineas's, or she could have not won any. We still would have had the same beauty in our movie, but we had that event to build towards. So that's how you do it. And in terms of when Jenna gets involved, I suspect that driving home from Trevor Smith, my longtime producing partner, came with me to this meeting at Billie's house originally. And I suspect that on the drive home, I said to him, give Jenna a call and see what she's up to, because this is something we've all worked together before. We love each other. We'd only made one film together before, but we'd had a wonderful time. It was a short about a local LA restaurateur named John Shook. And we just had a blast. And we knew that we wanted to, and Jenna, I mean, obviously we'd collaborated in other ways before, and we knew that Jenna was the perfect person for this. There were all sorts of reasons. She's a mom. She's a great artist. She's somebody who we hoped would be attracted to the material. And I suggested to Trevor, I'm sure in that car ride on the way home, that he give Jenna a call. And Jenna, then what happened?
Then, the call was, hey, here's some links to this artist. Have you heard of Billie Eilish? And I said, never heard of Billie Eilish. And RJ said to me, I want you to watch this footage of her, and I want you to think about Don't Look Back and Give Me Shelter in the back of your mind. Just 2 movies that we mutually adore and love. And so the minute I watched, I think it was some Vanity Fair series, like the first 2 installments of her Vanity Fair and some of her videos, I was completely hooked on her. And then I heard, of course, RJ had shared with me what he took away from that backyard meeting. And I said, I'm on. I'm 100% on, I can't wait. Let's do this. So I was fascinated by her, and I was so excited because I know RJ's a purist when it comes to verite, like a purist. And the word verite gets thrown around a lot, and I've had to recently step in and say, no, this is what pure verite is. It's truly not asking a question. It's just observational filmmaking, and I love it. It's my most challenging and most delightful, way of capturing life. So,
well, you guys
running, we were off.
Yeah. Well, I will say that's the thing that I really took away was I thought maybe there's one tiny moment where, and it's very early on, like in the first third.
Yes.
It looks like there's like a question being asked and then an answer. And that's the only time in the whole film. It's
before the title. It's that early.
It's so early.
It's so early that it's before the title, and it's so early that we didn't shoot it. But we.
I was wondering that.
But we had it, and it clicked, and it's the one. Again, if we were talking about editing, we'd talk about the question of where the family history goes. And that was one of the few moving pieces in the film. There it is. Here it is it's Billie's on she's on her bus.
Yeah.
And somebody, not us, had shot this thing with her. Usually we try, listen, the reason you're not doing interviews, there are 2 reasons you're not doing interviews in a verite environment. One is because you want the experience for the viewer to be a right brain experience, not a left brain experience. You don't want them, it's not about gathering information. It's about experiencing the life with the subject. As I like to say, because it's true, I can't remember a single interview in The Godfather, any of the 3 Godfathers. They weren't necessary. Coppola somehow found a way to tell the story of the Corleone family without an interview. So if he could do it, we figure we can do it too. But sometimes the person is somebody, the subject is somebody like Billie, and it's good to have her in an interview, her being interviewed. And, sure. So it stays in the right brain. You're filming and there are interviews in the movie. There's a very important interview about a third of the way through where she talks about mental health. It's very critical. Yeah, right. But we happen to be there filming her. That's what's going on in her life. In this, there's also this interview that you're pointing to where it's a very funny moment when she's in Eastern, she's in Europe and talking about how exhausted she is, and you're seeing the stress that she's under early on when they're pre-touring the album. So it's not that we are anti-interview. It's just that the tool of the interview, the way the audience engages with it, is different than the way you want them to engage in this experiential observational film. The other thing is, I don't like it when I don't ever want anything. I don't want anything. I don't want Billie talking about anything. I don't want Billie doing anything. I don't want from her. All I want is to see. And all I want is for Jenna to see. And all we want is to be curious. What is happening today in Billie Eilish's life? What does Billie want? What is she doing? How is that going? What are the obstacles? How does she overcome those obstacles? What does she learn in the process? All the classic questions of Aristotelian narrative are the questions that we ask. None of which are, what do I want her to say in an interview? So I don't want to be in that dynamic with the subject because it's actually not what I want. And as a result, interviews conducted by us turn out not to be particularly useful. This is an interview that wasn't conducted by us. And it was useful because Billie says my entire family was one big fucking song. That's a line I needed at the beginning of the movie, and it works.
There you go. And so, okay, so two questions. One, going back to the structure of it, but first, Jenna. So, just from a camera standpoint, and from effectively, are you guys a team of just a very small? You as a single camera? Are you adding additional cameras? But in your main camera, talk to me a little bit about the specifics. I saw in just like a behind the scenes thing, there looked like it was a C300, which is your sort of go-to body. Tell me a little bit about your lenses. How are you trying to sort of physically move around the environment to allow this complete, pure verite style to sort of manifest itself?
Well, so going in, it's kind of first of all, it's the approach, right? And RJ and I we agree very much on lean. Small crew, the smallest of small crews. Who is essential? The director, me, and the sound. That's it. That's the only people who are physically in the house. We're also in a
no lights, no cameras,
no lighting whatsoever. No. And so the approach right from the get-go is like lean. So everything I'm using to capture is on me, more or less, with the exception of a few lenses that I stash in the corner behind like the family piano or something, And so, and part of that is like, listen, we're going into someone's home, and it's not a big old home. It's a beautiful, modest little home. And we want to just be as respectful as possible, especially in the beginning, when you're getting to know each other. And at the end of the day, we're human beings. RJ and I have talked quite a bit about this sort of fly on the wall reference to verite. We're not flies, and we're human beings, bodies, and we have a presence, and we're there. It's not about pretend we're not here. We're here, but we're here with respect and compassion and curiosity, as RJ said. So that's kind of the mentality going in. And for me as a cinematographer, it's being so prepared and just knowing every lens I need. I don't scout anything. So the first time I went to Billie's house was the first time I was ready to shoot. We usually walk in, and depending on what's going on, in a matter of minutes, I might start filming. Sure. So I'm wearing my camera I use a monopod rig. I have a vest with a monopod rig, and then literally the camera is on that little monopod, and I have a cine saddle like as a messenger bag on me. So I use that for lots of different things, leaning up against the wall as a backrest to using it to shoot from the hip, you know.
What's the hero lens that you go to?
My hero like interior lens for this film was a 24-70 Canon L series lens, 70 to 200. If I'm, you know, if there's more space and I'm a little, you know, a little further back from them, or a 35 or a 50 prime.
Got it.
If I'm in a space for a while and I know, like, I can kind of predict, which is a lot of what happens in verite filmmaking. You could just, in your brain, I'm constantly anticipating, predicting, you know, I would stick on a prime because that would be great. Or, oh dear, Billy's getting in the car. She's going somewhere. Throw on the Canon 18 to 80 cine, servo cine. I don't use the servo, but the 18 to 80 lens. That's a great lens. It's got great stabilization. It's a little slow, but it works in the car. It was wonderful. And at any given moment, Billy would be like, I want to go to my brother's house, or I want to go drive around, because she was learning how to drive when we were with her.
Yes, it's really cool to watch.
We were often like, you know, in lieu of her parents, because she still hadn't had her driver's license. She just wanted to drive, and she needed adults with her, so she wanted to go drive. Okay, let's go drive. So we had some great drives around all over LA with her. So yeah, that's kind of my arsenal. And again, it's like batteries, cars, everything is on me. And some almonds, you know, because you never know where you just got to be ready. It's really, self-care is so critical in all forms of filmmaking,
Sure.
whether you're a producer or cinematographer. But
in our approach, all of these questions that Jenna are asking are aesthetic and technical and equipment based and fundamentally about the relationship with the subject. And that's the thing that you need to have a profound understanding about. So Jenna just described to you, even driving in the car with Billy, or the equipment that she uses in the house, which has to be sensitive to the fact that, you know, this is, as we say, this is a tiny house. And every time Jenna would walk in with the Cine saddle, Maggie would get anxious because it was like a third of a person more than Maggie could handle, you know, and it was, does she need all that? Why does she need all that equipment? We'd be like, all that equipment, look at her. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. You know, there's a house filled with clothing racks and boxes of presents from every sneaker company on earth. And the thing that would freak Maggie out would be the Cine saddle. But it did. And so we had to be thoughtful about that. And we had to be sensitive about that. Billy wanted to learn how to drive. She can learn how to drive with me. I'm of age. I have a license. That's fine. I can fold myself in half and sit in the back of her car and be there. I'm not going to use a frame of that, by the way. And I know I'm not going to use a frame of it because she's driving in a car without an adult. I'm not going to be in the movie. I'm not going to be the person and she, you know, in this part of the story, it has to be that she's taking driver's lessons with her dad or with her mom. That's what the story is going to be. But the nature of the relationship that is developing between us, the fact that we have time together, that we get to know each other, that we're alone without parents, that we're all of those things, that she's developing a relationship with Jenna and the equipment, and with Jenna and the lens, and all of that is incredibly important, even though I'm fully aware as the director, 90% chance I'm not going to use a frame of the footage when we use it. And shooting ratio is a big deal. We shoot, this is I think one of the few films I've ever not added up the film, but we estimate we shot 800 hours. And there were another 400 hours of family shot material, or archival, not just family shot, but things from all over the place. Well, when you're shooting 800 hours, you've got a lot of, you're ending up with, even in this very long film, relatively long film, which flies by, I want to point out, the time is subjective. But even in a film that's 2+ hours long, that's 798 hours that you've got of opportunity to use your footage, not necessarily to capture material that's going to be in the film, but to deepen the relationship.
Sure.
And which all goes back to the other fundamental thing that we have. What piece of equipment do you need most of all on earth when you're making a film like this? Trust.
Yes.
And that piece of equipment is this is why I teasingly said before that it's the Rocher curse that Jenna carries, but it's not. It's the Rocher gift. It's this extraordinary ability to connect with her subject, to earn the trust of the subject, to partner with me in that process. Jay Kim, who's holding a boom mic, talk about annoying to subjects. Nobody likes a fuzzy fucking boom mic in their life. But Jay also has the ability to earn the trust of the subject, to open, to connect. And we're all there. It's all we're doing. It's all we're doing is connecting and seeing and being who we say we are and earning trust and telling a story. And it's such a Zen approach. It's almost like not doing anything. We're almost what we're doing is nothing. And the closer you can get to watch D.A. Pennebaker and Chris Hedges make a movie, man, it was like they'd come in, Penny would take his camera apart, and he'd start working on, putting he would just like go to work. Chris would sit around with her mic, she'd have a mic that was a little reel to reel. What was the
like a Nagra.
Yeah, she'd have her Nagra, and it was like you had invited somebody you knew. It wasn't any different than when just an old friend of James Carville's would show up and hang out in the War Room. It was the same thing. And we aspire to the same Zen, almost nothing approach to what we're doing.
Right. Well, it's why the word that came to my mind was that you were embedded with them, like that you became part of their family because it felt like you were everywhere. But then from a structure standpoint, you can't be everywhere at all times. How do you structure something in which the objective is to basically be everywhere all the time? Well, or is it physically like it's a conversation? Like I am interested in sort of the mechanics of it because I'm like, how do you structure the day? How do you structure the week, the month? Because you shot for how long? Ultimately?
14 months. February, 1 year. 1 year.
Full year.
We shot for a full year. Yeah. And it's a great question. Well, again, one of the things you need to know is that, and I remember Jenna telling me a story. Jenna directed a beautiful film and you should tell your own story. I shouldn't tell it about life repeating itself. We only use one camera, by the way, and it looks as though we're covered. It looks as though we've got multiple cameras.
Actually, along that line, hold on, because I have a couple clips that they gave me. But this is the Grammy nominations. In here, I went, wait a second, how were you in two places at once? But you can tell me maybe a little bit more about that.
The full list of 62nd Grammy nominations are here.
Hi, love. Good morning. It's like Christmas morning. Like no presents. No presents? This is kind of a present. Do you want to hear? Okay. Nominations. Record of the Year. Bad Guy. Album of the Year. What album would that be?
Peppers of
When we all fall asleep, where do we go? Song of the Year. Bad Guy. Best New Artist.
Why do you sound like that?
Best Pop Solo Performance. And Best Pop Vocal Album. And Producer of the Year would be our brother.
Oh, he got it?
Yeah.
Yay! He was so anxious about that.
Hello, I'm putting you on the speakerphone. You can talk to your sister.
Eilish,
Guess what you did?
did you see?
You got it what you wanted.
Billy, congratulations on being nominated for everything.
You too, Phineas.
It's unreal.
I want to make you some food, Billy.
Oh!
I love you.
Jenna, how are you in two places at once, you genius?
Well, you're outside here. And now, this next edit, right there.
Sure.
Yeah, I just followed. I'm just rolling. I never stop rolling.
Just a cut. It's a cutting. It was a trick of cut that made me feel like you then bounced inside to see her coming.
Well, but I went right in with them. I never waited. At the minute we're okay to go in, to wake up, I just follow them in. This is, after being with them for almost a year, we've gotten to know each other, and I've hung out.
Yeah, we're waking up at dawn with them, and also we're here's the principle: life repeats itself over and over and over again, and not just in a 1 hour scene, but in a 1 month scene. There are themes. This is why we're able to make these films, because we understand that there are narrative elements of people's lives. And so the life that Billy is leading is going to have moments that can be put together editorially over a period of time. And you don't need to be there every second of her life. You don't want to be there every second of her life. Also, she doesn't want you to be there every second of her life. One of I don't know when I started doing it, but my rule or my encouragement to the crew, and I say I do this, and then in the moment I'm like, don't do that. But my encouragement to the crew is, let's leave 10 minutes before they ask us to leave. Let's stop shooting 10 minutes before they get tired of having us around, because I want them to be happy to see us the next time. I don't want them to have to have asked us to leave. That's very stressful, to ask people to leave your home. Who does that? Who has ever done that? And they're lovely people, and they know we're hard workers, and they respect us. So before they say to us, you know what, guys, we're tired. Maybe the day should say, long before that, we want to get the hell out of there. And again, I'm a greedy director, so I never actually want to do it in the moment. So fortunately, I have Jenna, who says to me, hey, let's go. And then the moment we sense that it's time to go, we're like, phew, we are out of there.
Well, I was wondering.
And sometimes we take weeks off.
Right.
Yeah.
Weeks off, and we trust in the gods to support us during that time. Because guess who's the happiest people to see us after we've been away for 3 weeks? The subjects, the folks we're filming with. But if we had been there day after day, and there is a critical scene in the movie, Billy hurts, tears her ligaments in Milan. Yeah. We're not in Milan. We're taking a month off so they'll miss us. And guess what they're doing? They're all filming on our behalf. They're all holding up their iPhones when poor Billy trips and hurts herself. And when they came home, you see the scene in the movie. When they came home, Billy was like, oh my God, you got to see this. And she goes. Oh, and
that little, where it actually turns.
And that's the moment we were like, wow, we've got to, let's go crowdsource as much of this footage as we can. So we went to our friends who were on her team, but we also went online and found people who had posted and asked them for their footage. And we live in an amazing time for verite filmmakers, because there are cameras everywhere, so you can do something like that. I cut you off, Jen. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, there's sort of an unwritten rule that I think I personally like to go by. I feel like we did on this film, is just sort of like, if you get one amazing scene, how lucky are you? Like he talks about greedy, of course we want to, I could have spent days on end with Billy, but that would not have served the film. But it's like the combination of knowing when you have something. And I think we would always have discussions, like in the van after, we would, really talk about what was really compelling. And I swear to God, every day we would leave Billy's house or leave Billy and her family, we would be just going crazy on, oh my gosh, that was fantastic. I can't believe that happened. It was an embarrassment of riches in that sense, but it's also knowing like, oh, we got it, man. We got to I don't be too greedy, but we got that. Like, that's really important too in this, in particularly in verite.
Pennebaker used to have
I always wondered, like, in the moment, for both of you guys, you must be like, oh yeah, that's making this film. That's a, oh my God, like even it must be exhilarating even in the moment of like, oh my God, we're actually here to witness this
when something's happening.
Incredible, like
I'm just always praying, like I'm always checking, making sure I'm recording.
That's right. Oh yeah, trust.
And then
yeah.
and sometimes I have to
that must
like,
be the biggest panic.
Talk myself down, like this is a moment, and you know this is a moment. Just chill out. Like don't overthink your shots. Don't zoom in and try and reset. That was another thing that RJ was a real blessing in this film, particularly with the music. Was like, just don't feel like you have to go and cover, because in not a lot of shows I was the only camera there.
Yeah.
So how do you approach that with what, right? And RJ said, and was a real blessing, was like, just be with her. Whatever angle that you want to, for a few songs, just hunker down and just stay with her and get into her brain and into her music and just be there. And it was such a blessing to feel like, oh, I don't have to pretend I'm 3 cameras. I can just be my 1 camera.
All I want is Jenna in the moment with Billy. That's all. I don't want the coverage. I don't want the full. I just want the moment. And this goes back, I'm learning from Alan David Maysles and how they shot Mick Jagger and the build up to Altamont. It's that movie is a kind of a road movie. The Stones are coming. They're crisscrossing America. It's the first time they've been in America in years, and they're on their way, and you want to be in there with them. The other thing I want to say, you were talking about the conversations at the end of the day. The conversations at the end of the day is what directing is. Penny used to say, directing is what happens in the bar when at the end of the shoot day, and it is. We're not sitting there. Young directors, don't tell your DP what to do or what to shoot, because that person's having an experience in a moment, and she's in a relationship with the person who she's filming, and so it's not up to me to say, get the wide shot. I can't even think about what would happen, but what you do talk about, and every day we would talk about it. Not every day we'd go to the bar, but every day at the end of the shoot, we say to each other, what did you see?
Yeah. And
what do you think you might see next time? And what did you learn? And what did all this make you curious about? And it's a discipline. And you have that conversation. You have it organically, you have it naturally, but you have it. You make sure that you have it, and then you kind of replicate it on the way to the next shoot. And that's, to me, that's directing. But performance was critical, because we're talking about the intimate verite, and of course, this movie aspires to combine the intimate and the epic. And the intimate is this dynamic in this family, this young girl, really in the eye of the hurricane in this tiny home in the middle of this exploding world. And then you have really one of what could turn out to be one of the most extraordinary performers in the history of popular music. We don't know so far. That's the Billie Eilish story, and that energy and that power, and how do you capture that? And Jenna was just speaking to that, and we really worked hard to get an intimacy with that in performance and trust, and so much so that you're going to see footage here where Jenna's on stage with Billy.
That's what I wondered.
Stage with Billy.
Yeah, I wondered. This was when you were talking about not trying to feel like you had to get coverage. It really took my it came across to the viewer really spectacularly, because I thought, I've shot some concerty things and I've gone, and I am sometimes thinking of like, oh, how this edit and the coverage, and let me get this wide and all these things. But the fact that you sustained so much on her performance in a singular way had such an effect on me watching it. Because I was like, it was great to not see a bunch of edits and to not see a bunch of like auxiliary coverage, you know?
Yeah, no, I love just being with her and following her. And it's part of the challenge of this type of work is just, I have to it's like a muscle memory. And also I start to kind of really study her movements. She's not like doing choreography, you know, everything with Billy is improvised, but for me, the challenge is always like, okay, I started to not even think about it. I would just naturally move in a way knowing that she's going to go, or, you know, it was just, you start to get very in sync. And that's what's really kind of nice, because it's on such a kind of really primal sort of level, you know. I'm just kind of adapting to her moves and knowing where she's kind of having a sense that, you know, after 20 some odd shows, I don't even know how many we did, RJ, a lot.
We probably shot 40 shows over the course of the year.
You start to just kind of, so that was really fun, just to kind of move with her.
Go to the final frame. Go to the final frame at Radio City Music Hall.
Oh, this is great.
This one?
Yeah.
This
so
frame?
How is that? You tell us. Where's Jenna? Where's Billy? What is being shot?
Well, these shots, when you were behind her, there was a shot early in the show, we don't have a still from it, where you're just seeing over her to all the cameras being pointed at her. Yeah. And there's a couple times in that you do it in the car. It's like, it has such impact for me of putting me in her shoes and feeling what it must be like to be
by
her.
the way, that's the Gimme Shelter shot that Nonfix highlights on their shot. But where's Jenna now? Where's Billy now? Is Billy on stage? You look at this shot. This is the final shot of the movie. Yeah. I don't mean the venue. I mean, she's on stage, but what's that in the background? What's that in the background?
Isn't that
the little thing all the way down on the ground in the background? What's that? That's the stage. So where's Billie Eilish?
Flying.
Where's the audience? Where's the audience?
They're down below.
How far down below are they?
Should I tell her?
About four.
What we did.
They're about 4 stories down below. Where's Billy? Billy has climbed the wall of Radio City Music Hall. A wall that was not meant for humans to climb, but she's decided in the middle of the performance to climb it. And who has she trusted to go up there with her? Is Jenna Roche. That's right. Look at that.
Yeah, this shot's spectacular. I remember in the end of it, I went, "That's a fantastic shot."
Because you have no idea where you are. And in the narrative, just to say, my kind of RJ in his head narrative is that this half human, half deity has descended to Earth, with her partner in crime from the same womb, brother Phineas, and here she is. This is the story of her arrival, and here she is floating in midair above her the people who are receiving her art, and who she's connecting with, and who she's helping heal, and who she's creating for. And this is, so the final image becomes, here she is literally in midair. It's almost, it's as poetic a shot as I think you could possibly end a film on. And if Jenna hasn't done all the things she's talking about and connected with Billy in this deep way, why on earth would Billy ever allow her up there with her. I mean, literally, or believe me, I was on the stage, and God bless Billy's manager, Danny. He was like, "What's going on? Get her off there," But it had been rehearsed. Billy had, everybody knew it was happening except Danny, God bless him. And he was at lunch while the rehearsal was happening. And then you end up with a shot like this for the movie. And forever we tried to get the whole sequence into the edit just so I could get this shot. And then, of course, one day, Lindsay Utz, the editor, just kind of like said, well, maybe what if we just put 10 seconds of it at the very end? And there it was, and it was perfect.
Yeah, it's very impactful. It's super, super.
May have been Greg Fitton. Lindsay and Greg, they collaborated on it.
Well, tell me, it's funny because I want to play this other clip because it speaks to the essence of, I think, what was so beautiful about the film, right? There's two things that come away whenever I watched clips or I rewatched clips or I rewatched the film was family. Right. Ultimately, the film speaks as much about family as anything else, music, otherwise, and it's joyful. The film is incredibly joyful. I don't know if it's just the nature of how effectively you were able to capture this family, right? Because it could also just be movie magic and they're a bunch of jerks, but I suspect that's not the case based on just what you captured in your verite way. But how joyful it was to watch people, and maybe it's also speaks to the edit and the way you see it unfold, succeed and get this, and not just succeed financially and all these things, but just creatively, that the sort of the every time they get a success, whether it's like going on a world tour and the album hitting one and the Grammys and all the rest of it, it's something about seeing the joy of them doing it together as a family, particularly her and her brother, which this is as much a story of Phineas as it is a story of Billy. That was a big takeaway of mine. When you started the film, and both of you guys can answer this if you could, did you have a sort of an expectation or how are you sort of, because you have to then think about the edit and what this thing is going to sort of end up becoming as a structure, but was there anything that really surprised you across that sort of came across that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I mean, getting back to the family theme of it all, I think that might have been the most surprising for me. I mean, I knew that this was a really tight-knit family. But I also knew we were making sort of a coming of age story about this artist and her brother, and I think it was when we arrive at the scene with the driver's license. It's one of the scenes that touches me so much. Is it
when the dad's talking to her?
It's when she drives away.
Yeah.
For the first
I don't know if we have that clip, but wait, while you talk about that, let's just play the license, because as somebody who has a 16-year-old son who just got his license a couple months ago.
So you know that when you're alone in the car and nobody's there to say anything to you, the rules of law still apply. It's not now you get to speed and do all kind of stupid. So you've been, you've learned to drive and you've been coached and helped and tested in order to be sure that you're going to be a sober, sensible driver. So always just err on the side of being safe. Whoops.
This speech, though, was very metaphoric, and it also was the thing that I remember also being very personal about, which is if something happens, just let it happen and don't panic and try to turn around.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Don't freak out. Let it go.
But then look what a wreck he is. Look at the same moment what a wreck he is. And off she's going. And by the way, she's going off to her boyfriend too. She's not just going off to life. She's going off to, to coming of age, to full flower. It's like, it's unbelievable. And in a way, one of the reasons that scene is so powerful is because the entire movie on some level is about Maggie and Patrick dreading, waiting for, fearing that moment. You think it's a movie about a record album being released. It's not. It's a movie about two parents, about the child leaving the nest. you guys say, because it's true, I have a daughter, she's 6. Well, all of us with children think our children are Billie Eilish, right? It's how we feel. It's whatever that means. It doesn't mean we think she's going to headline Coachella. It means any number of things. And for all of us, our little Billie Eilish leaving the nest is that moment of, it's one of life's essential moments if you're a parent. And that's what, that's kind of what the film's about. In addition to other things. But that's why it's so powerful that she captured it. And again, we talked earlier about interviews. I'm hanging with Patrick. What's Patrick do? And I'm talking to him. Jenna's got on the camera. Jay's there with the sound. It's a tough situation because we're in that backyard and there's a lot of width. But what is Patrick doing in that moment? Is he sitting for an interview? No, he's having a conversation with people who he's gotten to know well over half a year. They're his friends now. There's a connection. He's in this very emotional moment. It's the scene after this where she drives off and he's talking about the profundity of that scene and the fragility of life. I mean, he's getting deep into his existential worldview, which of course is Billie's existential worldview. So you're informed so deeply in that moment. And it's not, I haven't sat down to get something from him. Got to get Patrick talking about his existential view of life. No, it's his connection with the people in his life in that moment. And it's as verite as anything, even though he's just having a conversation with his friends who are making this movie about his family.
Yeah.
And then we land on, you go a step further and then, Maggie comes out disappointed that she didn't say bye. And as a mom, sometimes moms get the shaft, especially from the teenage daughters, and I felt like in that, I felt for Maggie so much. It was like, I just wanted to say goodbye. And then it goes further like, oh no, here's our daughter who happens to be Billie Eilish driving away with a car that has no tinted windows and we don't have her location set on the phone. I mean, I just it sends me into a panic every time. And I felt it so deeply then, right after that happened.
And they're so ill-equipped. They don't even know what the app is called. They're so she's a billion miles away from them. She's generations away from them. Forget it, man. She's and in the arms of the boy. All of it. It's just this is why we as often as possible. You talk about our process. Mostly, what we do is deference to the gods. And gratitude that they would if we adhere to these principles and we're kind to our neighbors, we hope they'll give us moments like this. And when they do, we just express our gratitude. There's nothing more to do.
No planning that one.
But yet again, like you say, you captured it. It's a moment of such emotional truth that if you wrote it into a screenplay, you'd be happy just to get that performance, because it's like it captures so much universality. Certainly I was connecting with it because it was happening to me in real time, sending off your kid. And the converse of it, which you also capture, which you spoke about earlier, which is that at the end of the day, she's Billie Eilish, who has an entire sort of, universe that revolves around her. And yet she also is just a kid who wants a driver's license, because the freedom that gives you that, and Patrick talks about it. He understands as just a person who also wanted a driver's license many years earlier, that's the essence of it. You just want that freedom. And like you say, it's also, they know that maybe this home they built, which is also so beautifully captured, in which literally an incredible album was produced on a computer in a bedroom, is also maybe those days are going to be numbered as well, because she's getting older.
Recently, about a month ago, we had the opportunity to have a big screening in LA, and Billie and everybody was there. Our whole team was there, and Billie and her folks were there, and we did a Q&A We did a Q&A afterwards. It was really wonderful. And afterwards, Maggie came up to me and she said, you know, I never realized what I would feel now seeing the film, and I'm so grateful in a whole new way that you guys made it, because that life doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
It's already gone. That home doesn't really exist. The kids are gone. We don't really exist in that way anymore. And you've captured that life that means so much to us, and we're so grateful.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting, because I wondered the same thing, because they had to have so much trust to let you guys live with them in this intimate way for so long. But it is also something they get to have forever in that way.
Yeah, well, the films are time capsules. Verite films are time capsules. That's you know that looking at Don't Look Back. You know that looking at Gimme Shelter. You know that looking at The War Room. They capture a moment in time, and then they become a kind of, for everybody, even the audience, they become a dialogue between the moment you're watching it and the moment that they capture, and that dialogue is really thrilling, and is part of why we love Verite so much. A documentary, well done, even non-Verite documentaries can really do that, but Verite does it in a way that just to blow your socks off.
There one more thing, and we have a little clip of some of the relationship in a small way, but that the film has, and it's structured in such a way that you actually see it as almost, it's interesting. At the end, it says written and directed by R.J. Cutler, and I wanted to ask you a question about it regarding, because obviously it's so verite that I was curious about the writing, because of course documentaries are written, I guess, in part during the editing, but to speak a little bit about even the credit of that, but also what that means to you in a film like this, because again, you've got 800 hours of footage. That's a yeoman's work just to literally put that into 2 hours and 40 minutes, Yeah, there's a complexity to it, and I'm not sure we perfected what the credit should be. There were back in the day. If you look at a film like Gimme Shelter, it'll say a film by, and there'll be all the filmmakers. But they're union things now, and there are other things that get involved. So believe me, the construction of this film, the work that Lindsay Utz and Greg Fenton and Jonathan Ruane, who is our story producer, who watched every frame we filmed, and was present for the entire editorial process. All of that, our assistant editors, there's so much that goes into the construction of a film. This film is constructed within a frame of its life. It's all true. It all happened. It's all real. It's all verite. But every moment is a choice. We're of course, right? I'm given the privilege of a writing credit because of all the writing that I do all the way through the process. For months before we start filming, I'm writing. I'm writing I'm writing what the film's going to be about. I'm revising that written document throughout. This is my process, but I'm revising that written document throughout the experience. There are pages, there are 20, 30 pages of a narrative, of notes, of all of those things. I'm presenting that to the editors on day one of the edit as we're figuring out what's going on. I'm revising it through that. So that act is acknowledged as written by, which is as I say, I'm not entirely sure we in the documentary community have caught up with finding the fully accurate ways of using those words. The WGA is involved too. Sure. There's a lot of complexity. But most of all, any credit I am taking, I am standing on the shoulders of these remarkable artists who I'm working with. And it on some level, it should always be a film by, and it should always be Jenna, Greg, Lindsay. I mean, we are months, and Trevor Smith, who's producing, Jay, who's taking the sound, Jonathan, who's the story producer. The 6, 7 of us are really, we're like a band.
and sometimes there's a a lead singer who gets a little bit more, but we're making music together is what's going on.
No, but I actually meant it more in a fact of like the fact that I think when people think about documentaries, they forget that it is written in the sense of that you have to sort of like take each one of these pieces and connect them and weave them in a story that feels as if you wrote it as a screenplay. And that's why I actually was, and particularly in something this verite, I was like, I think it's a rightful credit, and I actually understand it, even as somebody who hasn't made a lot of documentaries, because I understand the complexities of how a documentary is made.
Constructed within an inch of its life.
Exactly.
And let me tell you something else. You move that shot of the that Radio City Music Hall shot. You move that at the end, the movie changes. You move the scene at the beginning where we talk about her family. That used to live in the end credits. That used to live in the end credits. Oh, it's a whole different movie. It's a whole different. The alchemy of this, and we have a lot of juicy scenes in this movie. You said before, all you need are 2 or 3. Most of the films we make rely on 2 or 3 scenes. This one we didn't. This one it was like every freaking scene was unbelievable. But most of the time, you look at the September issue. I'll tell you, if there's half a dozen golden scenes in that, I'd be surprised. And the rest of it is construct. It's construct, it's context, it's it's alchemy, it's beautiful filmmaking. And Azine Samari is a genius editor, and Bob Richmond shot it, and I'm so proud of it. But it's just a different thing. And then you watch it and you think that's all that happened. This is why I get a little I'm in a loving debate with my friends in the critical community who have identified the film as, if it's a movie about a pop star, even though I have final cut, even though if it's a movie about a pop star, it must be servicing that person's brand. Well, you forget how we are so in control, man. So it's an ongoing, as I say, loving conversation.
Well, and
with some of my pals.
Talking about a pop star there's the through line of the Justin Bieber thing has so much resonance for the movie because of the history of Justin Bieber as someone who was, and now watching somebody effectively mirror who she had a relationship that literally her mom talks about wanting to go to therapy because it was such a close relationship to Justin Bieber as a child that it was like overtaking, her emotional sort of body. And then to see those moments, and that moment at Coachella, and then also obviously I have a little clip of that thing at the end.
Well, let me tell you a story about that. Again, more Jenna Rocher genius is that we're at the end of the movie, which is going to provide the climax, the payoff to that whole Justin Bieber thing. We're not allowed to bring a camera to the Grammys. We're not allowed in. The Grammys are owned by CBS or somebody. They're not owned by us, and nobody's going to give us access. But Billy's allowed to bring a friend, and she can bring her friend Jenna Rocher, and Jenna Rocher can have an iPhone, and iPhones are pretty awesome these days because Billy trusts Jenna, because she's there by her side in that moment after she wins those awards. We get what is truly, and then you cut to Radio City Music Hall where she's floating above.
Yeah,
I mean, come on, man, that's just like that's beautiful stuff.
I mean, let me ask you the one final question, and Jenna, speak to this maybe a little, which is, after spending so much time with the subject, and this must happen on all documentaries that you guys do, I mean, I assume you have just a forever relationship with that person. Like, I thought of it when I saw her headline SNL, and she did such a wonderful job, and I had seen the film, and so I already sort of had this sort of love for Billy and her family, and Phineas was on the show as well, but it gave me such a different perspective of joy watching her succeed on SNL, and just, again, this kind of joyful reaction. Do you now have a relationship with Billy, not just in your own way, but just that you almost like a parent or somebody who you now, and same with you, RJ, as well, but it just, when you do something for a year, spending so much time, how does it affect you in that relationship to that human?
Yeah, it's, with documentary, I always, when you stop filming, there's this period of, you see them, they're out there, especially someone like Billie. There was obviously COVID right after we stopped filming. So she was pretty hunkered down like all of us. But then when she started going out there again, I was like, oh, I'm not with her anymore. You go through this kind of loss of that time, and you watch this person from afar, in a way. And there's, with such appreciation, but there's always this sort of surreal moment of not really being with them anymore, and kind of wishing, there's this like spread your wings and fly, angel kind of mentality, but also you're like, God, I wish I was there. It's very interesting. I haven't seen Billie or keep up with her, but I do through people who are, surround her and communicate with her that way. She had posted something recently about crying. She loves the movie. She really does. And she would post these Instagram posts. Here I am watching the doc again. And she's this little face. And RJ and I had screened the film at AFI. And that was actually the first time I had ever seen the movie in a theater setting. And I was crying on the same day. So I connected with her through her, through someone in her camp, and I just wanted you to know I was crying too, because the movie makes me cry. But it's really interesting in docs, because there's a period where you don't spend that much time anymore with someone, and you look at them, you watch them from afar, particularly if it's someone who's a public figure.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's really interesting hearing what RJ said about Maggie. Like, you captured something that doesn't exist anymore. And I feel that I get what she means by that. And that really, again, goes back to this sort of time capsule of life. And I'm just filled with sort of just gratitude of being able to be there with her, and the fact that she trusted us and, felt very strongly herself about how important it was to capture this time in her life, was committed to allowing us to be there. And I'm forever have gratitude to her and her brother and her parents for that. So
yeah, it's
a gift that you also gave them.
Yeah, and in that kind of Zen way, that approach to the whole experience that needs to inform your kind of your transition away from the relationship. You all went through this magical journey together. And you have to protect your emotional life too. I learned that on the War Room. It was like they were running the country. I was like, well, there's my friends in the White House. Shouldn't I be? Wait, what are we? George is on my TV. But you go through it enough. You learn that there's going to be a transition. One of the things that's very healing for that is the festival process with movies, because you all get these big events. You get to celebrate. You go to dinner at Sundance. You get the big premiere at the Eccles. The normal route of these things, there's about a 6-month period where you ramp down from that. First of all, you shoot for a year, then you go away for a year and make the film. Then everybody goes through the period of time where you're experiencing the film together. They're seeing it, you're bringing it out into the world. Then you premiere at the festival, and that's where you get to bond. And it's where the subjects are like, oh, wow, those guys, they really do. Oh, they're not just a bunch of annoying people hanging out in our house. Look, people they're professional. It's the whole thing. And you have, and they're, executives throwing them dinner parties, and we're invited, it's like, and but you also have a good time together, and you talk about the film, you talk about your experience publicly. That's very healing. And then the movie opens, and then there's now this awards thing. So you go through that, and then you kind of ramp down, and we had a different version of it. But an equivalent version, and we're kind of going through it. And I probably text with Maggie every week, every 2 weeks. She's incredibly kind. We had a daughter this year, and when my wife got home from the hospital, it was COVID, so that was crazy. And she brought us all, she fed our family one night and things like that. And we had that screening that I talked about. So we do what we can, but you have to, as a filmmaker, you have to anticipate that there's going to be this transition, and you're going to, you're going to experience it, as Jenna says, from a position of gratitude. There was an experience, I think of it a little bit like summer camp. That was that life then, and here's this life now, and then you hold on to Jenna and Greg and Lindsay and hope you can do as many other things together as quickly as possible. Jenna and I, we can't tell you what, but we're off to start our next film.
Oh, that's exciting! Great.
We fly on Sunday, and
getting the band back together. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best. Oh well, that's exciting. I'm glad, and I think hopefully everyone, this COVID thing, which is crazy, will be more behind us each week and day. So good on you, making movies. That's what we're doing. That's what it's all about. Well, listen,
we're so grateful for this. What a unusually exciting way to approach all of this and talk about it.
I'm so happy we did this. I'm so excited that for everyone who hasn't seen the film, obviously you can still watch it on Apple TV Plus, and you should watch it and watch it again if you've already seen it. It's on the short list for the Academy for docs. So vote. That comes up soon. I'm a voting member, so there you go. And I'm excited because we're going to start we're going to historically put more docs on the site. So like September Issue and War Room and Give Me Shelter and all the rest, they're all in our queue of films to do. So excited to get them on the site. There you go.
How great. Well, thank you. Thanks. And
thanks, RJ and Jenna.
Thanks, Larry.
God bless, friend. So good to see you. I'm sure I'll see you all week.
You guys are getting on a plane. Go have fun. Indeed. Go make something great. Get some great scenes. There you go.
Thank you, friend.
You got it. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you.
Good. Bye-bye.